Good morning. I'm Nick Brake. Today I'm going to talk about Abraham Maslow's needs hierarchy. This is a pyramid, basically listing off all of the top to bottom needs from a human being and how every single one of them builds on top of it, on each other, basically to complete and fulfill a need of human achievement and success. So, first of all, before explaining the theory, you need to know who he is himself. Maslow was born in 1908 in Brooklyn to Russian parents. He was of Jewish descent. Maslow was a psychologist. His expertise was in human motivation. Essentially, he was curious and he was interested not in the business aspect of humanity or the financial success of a human being, but really why and how they achieved success and fulfillment. That's a very important word, fulfillment. It's important to know that his mentor was Harry Harlow, who was a very famous psychologist as well at the time, and he also he pursued his education at University of Wisconsin after transferring there from a much smaller school in New York, where he got all three of his degrees that he earned. So let's look at the pyramid. This is not a pyramid scheme. This is an actual good pyramid. And you aren't just going to be stuck at the bottom. You can get all the way to the top of this one much easier than a pyramid scheme. So this is what it looks like. Obviously, sometimes when people look at pyramids, their eyes are fixated and drawn at first to the start of the pyramid, the top, and they move themselves to the bottom. But it's not how it works. You gotta start at the very bottom and move this up to the top, much like a chain. So at the bottom are the needs of a human being. What you actually have to do to survive. You know, you don't need technically these other 4 steps to live by all technicality. You need to be able to breathe, so you need air, you need food, you need water, shelter, stuff like that, as it's listed. Then it's safety and security, love and belonging, self-esteem, and then at the top, the number 1, or the success, the winning. The top, as good as it gets, is the self-actualization. So let's go one by one. But first, before I do that, I do want to just make sure I define what this is and what the needs hierarchy actually is. And the definition that I created is the spiritual material needs for a human being to live a purposeful life, not just to live. This is not just the actual pursuit of living, it's pursuit of living with purpose. As Epictetus says, it's the art of living. This is how to live life a fulfilling way, not just how to live. So let's break it down. This is in order, exactly the steps, the 5 steps to success for fulfillment. And as I mentioned earlier, this is the beginning. This is the first steps into living for fulfillment, and that's actually living. These are the things that all humans need, the basic needs, like I mentioned: air, food, water, sleep. A lot of people know about the rule of 3. You can go, 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, and 3 minutes without air. Apologies if I got that wrong, but these are the things you actually physically need to survive. You don't need human connection to survive, which we'll get to that later. That is more fulfillment and emotional fulfillment. But these are the actual things you physically need to live. Simple as that. So that's the bottom. The bottom is something that, if you're listening to this, you probably achieve. Maybe you don't get enough sleep. Maybe you don't eat healthy enough. Maybe you don't drink enough water, but if you're watching this video, you're at least doing at the bare minimum to live, because you are alive. You have to be alive to watch this video. So that's step one. Let's go to step two. Step two is safety. Not just physical safety, but also emotional safety. The things that you need to avoid to survive, also the things you need, help, like job security. The feeling of job security emotionally. The safety of, it's hard to explain, but the safety of knowing you have enough money and you're not in poverty. Being, a lot of people have the fear of dying or the fear of bad weather, but the safety, the feeling safe where you are emotionally and physically, knowing you're not going to die in this moment, even though I guess you could. Feeling, okay, I have enough money, I'm not broke, my job is safe, I physically feel safe right now, I feel okay. That's what this is. This is much harder to achieve than step one, because we live in an unguaranteed world. Nothing is guaranteed, nothing is fully safe, no one is truly guaranteed to live or to have these things. Jobs can go away at the snap of a finger. Weather is unpredictable. Money is complicated. Life is complicated. So these aren't guarantees. These aren't things that everyone have. But this is the second achievement. A much harder one than the first one. But this is step two. Do you feel safe right now? Do you feel okay? Does everything feel all right? Do you feel like you're getting by? That's step two. A harder step, but it is the second one on this list. So if you have safety, if you have your basic needs of human survival in part one, then you can move on to part three. That's love. That is fulfillment of human connection. The feeling that you have people you can rely on, whether you're friends, whether you're families, whether it's a spouse you have an intimate relationship with, a partner, a wife, a husband, any sort of significant other. Having those things. Now, you don't necessarily need all three. You don't need to have a significant other in order to succeed and live a fulfilling life. That's not the implication here, but you need some sort of emotional human connection. It doesn't have to be all three. You could live a fulfilling life without family. You could. It's possible. But you need human connection. Whether it's a friend, a best friend that you love, whether it's a partner in life, a husband, a wife, a spouse, whether it's just having great family, you need to have that. You call it your support staff or your support. Everyone needs that. Everyone, if you're working a job, everyone needs that coworker who you can rely on to be able to express your concerns or to just make you feel good. Everyone needs that. I need that at school when I'm teaching. I need to have that other teacher who checks in on me, or the person who maybe feels the way I feel. I also need my family who I can go to if I am having trouble. It's great to have friends who you can laugh with and connect with on different interests and just life experiences. And of course, having a partner, a spouse who you can walk through life with. Those are important and crucial needs for fulfillment. So if you have those three things, if you have all of these first three steps, you can move on to esteem. This is the desire, not just, I wrote the desire for a positive view of oneself, but it also has to do with the need for other people to view you in a positive light. Now, obviously, you cannot rely on how other people view you. You have no control over how other people view you. So having a positive view of oneself is the most critical, because no matter how great of a person you are, how good you are doing, how confident, how achieved you are, that does not necessarily translate to other people viewing you highly, or maybe viewing you from the objective standpoint that you are a good person. So as long as you can view yourself that way, that I would say you're succeeding in this category. But it does have a lot to do with how you are perceived by other people as well. So that is the fourth thing. Are you confident in yourself? Do you feel like you are, achieving success? You're living the good life. You're a good person. But also, do other people see you that way? The final step is called self-actualization. This is once you have achieved all of these other 4 steps, you are able to look at yourself and feel complete, feel that you are living a good life while also staying true to your values, whether it's you're creative, you view life with a lack of prejudice, as I wrote, you live an objectively good life. You are actually realizing all of your potential. You cannot do this without those other 4 things. You need human connection. You need safety. You need to actually be alive and eat and drink and sleep to achieve this. If you don't sleep and you're a tired person, how are you going to achieve this? So you need all of those things. And once you do, the final step is self-actualization. It's the emphasis on being you, being successful, being the best version of yourself. And you cannot actualize the best version of yourself without those other 4 steps. But it's seeing yourself and truly being you in the complete best version of yourself. Everyone wants to be the best version of themselves, and it's hard to do that, and it's something that clearly takes time. You live your whole life, pretty much by the time you die, you're like, okay, well, I figured it out. Close to, anyway. It takes a long time. And it's because you can't start at this step. You have to go back and do all of those other things first before you can do this part. So it's the hardest step. It's the final step. It's, if the video game people call it the final boss. This is the last achievement to living this good life. So how does this work in a classroom? Why is this relevant to people in our major? Well, it is, because it is, but it is because also, obviously, we as teachers and educators need to achieve these 5 steps, but so do our students, and we need to help them get there. Our kiddos are young. They are confused about life. We as teachers are people who are supposed to teach them, are supposed to educate them, are supposed to push them in the right direction. So we need to realize that when we are in the classroom, we are not to expect self-actualization on the first day without being able to implement all of these other things. I see the second bullet point as the most important one, which is the second tier of this pyramid. You need to make your classroom feel safe. You need to make your students feel safe with you as a teacher, as an authoritative figure in your class. If they don't feel safe in your classroom around you, how are you going to achieve the 5th step of self-actualization? How are they going to succeed in your class? So every student needs to feel safe in your class. Every student needs to be alive. That's the first step. But all of these 3 steps are critical for a kid in your class before they can finally reach the top of the pyramid as an educated student. The last bullet point I thought about in an interesting way as well, because you can't, when we're managing classrooms, you can't just punish a kid without knowing the kid, And this is hard to say because you want to treat your kids evenly and equally, but it's hard to discipline a student without knowing the student, understanding their needs, understanding how they operate, understanding and connecting with them. Obviously, the third one is the need for human connection. You need to be able to connect with your student before being able to discipline them, right? If you don't feel and you don't earn a sense of respect with your students, and they don't know that you're on their side, how are you going to discipline them? And then, all else will fail. So this is how I feel personally it works in the classroom with how I interpret this hierarchy model. So let's talk about the benefits of Maslow's theory. I don't see a lot of drawbacks because also this was the benefits and the critiques. I really enjoy this. I've really liked to get to learn and to study this theory over the past week. I believe that this emphasis on taking self-fulfillment one step at a time is really interesting. I'm a perfectionist, but I also kind of rush things sometimes, and I expect perfection instantly. And it bothers me when I can't reach that metaphorical top of the pyramid on the first day. I don't like leaving work incomplete. I want to do it instantly. But that's not how it works. And this theory points that out. It points out you have to have all of the other necessary things before you can reach the top. So I don't have any critiques of this, because I believe that this one step at a time approach is really interesting, and I believe that the material and spiritual, those two different types of connections and of needs of a human being, are really interesting that Maslow points out here, because not all of these are spiritual needs. Some of them are material and physical needs, the physical safety and the emotional safety. I think this is a really interesting model. Maslow, like I wrote down here, he believes a person can't be complete until they feel safe and all their needs are met. I just think that this is a really interesting idea and an interesting concept. And the psychology of life is a heavy burden. As someone who studies that, as Maslow did, and I think that this is a very objective, one-size-fits-all model that can be applicable for anyone. It can be applicable in a classroom for the teacher, and also for the student, and also a combination, a whole class of people. We all have different needs, but at the end of the day, they all have to do with these 5 needs. The needs for survival, for safety, for connection, and of course, that top need of fulfillment. So while everyone has unique needs, while no people are the same, as best as one can, this model does really, it perfectly culminates, and it covers all bases for every person. As unique as we are, this is really applicable, I think, for every single human being, each and every part of it. So I really liked it. So thank you for introducing it for me. So this is the only source I used. I used, of course, the model itself by Maslow, but this source is just a biography, just to get to know the person himself. So that's it. Thank you for watching, and have a great rest of your day.